I think probably a good idea to move away from home diving boards.
Yeah. Well, I disagree with that. I think we need more injuries. I think we need more. We gotta tough these. You know what? They're all being raised like veal. You know. We gotta give them access. Just there's only one way to learn how to dive into a shallow pool. You hit your head and you realize, okay, I gotta flatten out once I get in the water there.
Yeah,
or I gotta just go in full belly flop.
That's how I learned. Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
Welcome to Backtracking, the show where two old friends take a second listen to influential dance catalogs, track by track. I am J. William Hall.
And I am Dan Fiden. We'll be taking this journey together, providing context, both historical and personal, on some legendary bands. For our second season, we have selected none other than indie rock darlings, American Music Club. J. William Hall, here we are.
Indeed.
At Backtracking World Headquarters, our glistening chrome orb that floats somewhere outside of Santa Fe is what I imagine if we had
halfway in between Columbus, Ohio and Hawaii.
Yeah. Is that roughly right?
I bet it's not as far off
not even
as
close.
it sounds.
It's way off. It's way off. I mean, Hawaii, I think, is about 2,000 to 3,000 miles away from California. And
right.
California is about 2,000 to 3,000 miles away from New York. So I think you're off by a couple thousand, or 1,000 miles maybe.
When I look at the
miles.
map, they put Hawaii right next to California. See.
Well, it is, the Pacific is a vast space. J. William Hall, a vast space. Have you ever seen one of those maps that we're moving off into map territory? But sometimes you'll find these like interesting little map makers that will show you different kind of versions of the world map and stuff.
Yeah.
I saw one of these that was a showing a globe, but it showed the globe kind of a full side of the globe where you couldn't see, and it was just entirely the Pacific Ocean. So like Hawaii was in there, but like there were no continents were in there.
Yes.
Isn't that wild?
It is wild. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you look, if you're at that right position in space.
That's true. Let's hope we never are. So J. William Hall, speaking of another denizen of the Pacific, Mark Eitzel. He is the singer-songwriter that we're here to discuss today. Another solo album is what we've got on the docket, Brannan Street. Now, this album, I would argue, is even less well-known than the largely unknown Klamath that we covered in the last episode. Or last two episodes, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, I believe that I saw this album described somewhere as Klamath Leftovers.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So I think, or they were probably like, maybe they were demos that were kind of in the mix, for Klamath, but he, left them kind of unfinished or just in demo form or whatever. And yeah, I think that's what we're looking at here.
Yeah. So we've got another 2009 release date here, but it wasn't on a label. So self-released, same as Klamath, although this one wasn't released in Europe either. So Klamath was self-released by Eitzel in the US and Decor Records in the UK. Is that correct, or am I misremembering that? mixing it up with Candy Ass.
I saw that this was an edition of 750 copies.
Okay.
And 500 were sold in Europe, 250 in the U.S.
Okay. So, not a widely distributed album. Of course, available now on Mark Eitzel's Bandcamp. Please go check it out. Were you about to say something there, J. William Hall, before we dive in deeper?
I was just saying, pay the man.
Yeah, pay. I did. Everyone, I did it on Bandcamp.
I did it too.
That's how I did it. Excellent.
Guilty as charged.
Excellent. So, it is. Why don't we get into the cover, because I think it leads us logically into what you were just saying, the connection with the recording of Klamath. So the cover of this album is another lovely kind of pastoral image of what looks to be the wilds of far northern California. I would assume that's what it is. There is kind of a creek, small river in the foreground. Beautiful, perhaps sequoia forest in the background, and kind of a sky. Very interesting lighting in this photo.
Well, it looks like maybe there's a sunset happening, like off the edge. Or is it a sunrise? Well, no, it would be a sunset.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. Well, he could be facing east, I guess.
Wouldn't there be like great mountains and?
I don't know. But it is. I do feel as though it's a similar photo to the Klamath cover.
Yes. Yes.
Also, not a dissimilar kind of type treatment. Very simple. Mark Eitzel, Brannan Street. That's all it says. I would say that I really like not only this cover in and of itself, but I like its connection to the cover of Klamath. It feels in many ways like it's a kind of a double album package to me. And musically, I feel like it's a double album package. And I don't know. I really like that. I actually really like the way he put these two together. Like the aesthetic similarities in the covers. I like the kind of simple, straightforward, location-based, album titles similar to the earlier AMC titles like California and San Francisco. He's getting a little bit more obscure and a little bit more specific with the titles. But overall, I just kind of like conceptually that these two fit together pretty well.
So here's my question.
Okay.
Why is it called Brannan Street?
Yeah. I don't know, but I actually I wrote down this question as well, given the similarity in the music, given that what you said, that maybe these were all part of the same, project for Eitzel, maybe the same recording sessions or similar recording sessions, certainly contemporaneous with one another. And there was this time that he spent in Northern California. Why wouldn't he name this album something more Northern California specific rather than Brannan Street, which is, of course, a main thoroughfare right there in San Francisco?
Yes, and I did some research.
Okay, all right, I want to hear it.
I was backtracking. I was going deep.
Excellent.
And I discovered that Brannan Street is the street that formerly housed Alias Records, which was the record label that put out Everclear.
Yeah, I remember.
It's a conspiracy. Something's happening here. No, my understanding is that Brannan Street is it's got a lot of businesses on it, right?
Yeah, it's a pretty big street in San Francisco.
That's my only quibble with the package.
Yeah,
like as you said, I think also yes, it looks like it's part of a pair with Klamath. I think it is because I think it's sort of from the same pool of songs. There's some alternate versions of Klamath songs on this.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, you know, cover looks good.
And I think it's good. I think, you know, I had the same questions as you, but I do overall really like that. And it put me in the right headspace for getting into this album. I kind of felt like I knew what I was going to get, which again, I liked. Tonally, I like that expectation that it set for us. So, you know, I was not able to find any credits on any of the websites or anything. Clearly, Eitzel is kind of doing the production here. It does have a very lo-fi, demo-y kind of a feel overall. And so I'm assuming Eitzel's kind of the only musician that worked on it and is kind of the full producer credit. I think this is a very interesting release. After my first, I'm just giving you some overall thoughts now. After my first couple of listens, I felt very much like what you had said you read online about this, that it was a kind of a B-sides and outtakes package from Klamath, which in and of itself feels a little bit less hi-fi than most of his solo albums, right? So I thought that was a bit strange, and I was initially a little bit skeptical. But again, like Klamath, this record really grew on me. And I think it's one of, you know, it is one of his stronger solo collections, in my opinion. And I really like the kind of stark intimacy of this record. The things that it evoked for me, and I'm curious if you kind of had a similar feel, that the first two Elliott Smith records, Roman Candle and the self-titled, early Will Oldham, right? It has this kind of like feeling like, wow, this is just a friend in a bedroom, and I'm just getting glimpses of something that maybe was never really intended to kind of go wide. And as I was like appreciating how well I like Eitzel in that setting, it struck me that like there really isn't anything else in the catalog like that from AMC or Eitzel that I've heard anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I think there have been hints. It's not like this is a brand new style that he's never showed before, but I think that the fact that this album is mostly solo acoustic finger picking. So yeah. Elliott Smith, definitely the first couple albums, Nick Drake, it's the same sort of mood as Klamath.
Yeah.
It has a rustic kind of like guy in a cabin vibe to it, but
yeah,
Klamath had a lot more layers and overdubs and different sounds and stuff. You know, it was more of a production, whereas this sounds more just like spare demos. And then there's a couple of like ambient pieces on here, you know, but that kind of continues that thread from the last couple of records as well, where he started to kind of dabble in that. So I agree with you. My expectations were lower for this collection, but with each successive listen, I've liked it more and more. Like I think it's very cohesive, and it feels like this kind of single vision or whatever. But it still akin to Klamath. So once again, I feel like this is the pattern that I've had, for probably since the AMC albums. Like, my expectations were kind of like, well, there's going to be a drop off, but I'm here to tell you.
Yeah.
We're still giving it high marks.
Yeah. I mean, it took me 3 or 4 listens to this to really get into it. But once I kind of broke through there, I really, really appreciated it. And again, I want to go back to this intimacy thing again, if you'll bear with me.
I'm always willing to be intimate with you.
Yeah. So like when I was kind of trying to put together some thoughts on like the overarching feel of this album for me, and I kind of just decided, okay, for me, this seems to me to be this kind of this style of recording and performance that is just very, very intimate and simple and straightforward. And that's kind of like the early Elliott Smith, like that stuff. I was kind of trying to think through the catalog, figuring out where were there other moments of that. And it really came down to two things for me. Live albums, right? I think Songs of Love and live performances for the band they can have very intimate moments, and I would say sometimes kind of more intimate than most bands would have in a live setting, right? Almost squirm inducing. We've talked about that. Like Eitzel can really just kind of put it out there in a very raw way as a performer. But that isn't exactly what I mean. It's more of a recording style thing. And the only thing I was able to come up with were those last couple of songs that he recorded in the closet that ended up on Songs of Love Live, right? And when I think about that, like, you know, what Godzilla said to God and like that recording, I keep on going back to that. Like earlier in the season, I kept on saying, oh God, that's one of my favorite recordings of Eitzel. But it never really clicked for me. Why? Because I've been so wrapped up in this, like, I love the overall production of Everclear. I like it when they go for these big, more almost orchestral, like big hi-fi albums. I like that about AMC. And I think I just kind of felt like somehow or another I missed out on maybe noticing that Eitzel in a very spare setting, really, really stripped down and not live, but just recorded in a very simple way, could be as powerful as it is. But like, I feel like I was like, holy cow, that's what these two, Klamath and Brannan Street, kind of like showed me. And in some ways, even more on Brannan Street than Klamath, right? I really hope that this is a mode that maybe he sticks with for the remainder of these solo albums. I don't know, because I haven't heard anything off of them. But I will say I was delighted to hear this one kind of coming off of Candy Ass, which I just feel like, you know, was going in a direction that I didn't like as well. More of an electronic direction. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like this is the exact opposite. So I was really into it.
Yeah, well, you know, I love me some demos and B-sides.
It's true.
So,
it's true.
You know, I was all about hearing this stuff, and it was interesting, you know, because there are a couple of songs on this album that are just alternate versions of songs on Klamath. And I thought they were going to be like, you know, like not as good as the Klamath one or whatever. But I actually like these versions equal to the ones on Klamath. Like I feel like they're both they're different enough to be sort of independent in a way, but are both so good that it's like, you know, I understood why he wanted this version out there, because it's sort of a reimagining a little bit of like the lyrics. And so you know,
it is you know, when you listen, we're going to dig into the first track here in a second, but I don't know if you remember, I think it was within the context of the recording of Mercury. There was an interview, or it was a passage in the Sean Body book, perhaps, where someone remembers Eitzel, or Eitzel said that he heard a Bon Jovi song and was bummed out about how big it sounded compared to the AMC song that he had also just heard on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
when I think about that Mark Eitzel mindset, and then I listen to this out, it could not be more different, right? Like everything that a really big, flashy, rich studio recording is kind of like not what appears on this record. But the power that I think there are in moments on this record, I don't know, just surprised me, made me laugh a little bit. I was really curious. I kind of, I wish there was an opportunity to talk to Eitzel and kind of like, you know, I wonder whether he feels that, whether that was an intentional element of how he recorded this, or whether it was more like, no, that's just how the demos come out, and I just, you know, decided to put them out on these limited edition things, and there wasn't really, you know, he wasn't trying to contrast to the earlier, flashier recording styles that show up on a lot of the early solo records and many of the later AMC records.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think that AMC, it's funny to reflect on the fact that at some point he wanted the band to sound as big coming out of the radio as Bon Jovi, you know?
Yeah.
Because I think that it was like he heard an AMC song from California, which that was the one touch point I was going to say for this like stark acoustic is Jenny, you know, from California.
Yeah.
Like I think that was where like every album might have one, you know, kind of like song that was of this ilk. But yeah, it's funny that, you know, but I mean, that's sort of the magic, you know, of AMC, as we've said many times, is like they, you know, could go from really like soft and quiet and beautiful and, you know, to big and noisy, and, you know, like they kind of went everywhere, and I don't know, you know, like I think that this version of like Eitzel solo, like one man and a guitar, is kind of like its own special thing, you know, but then AMC of course is like a whole different thing, you know, so
yeah. All right, well, listen, why don't we dig into it? Track 1 on this lovely compilation. It is called Friends, parenthetical, Instant Song, 4 minutes and 28 seconds. Let's go.
Friends who I love, I miss you. I hope you're with someone.
Okay, so J. William Hall, one thing by way of a point of order, none of the lyrics here appear in Genius.com.
they do not.
So I was unable to track down any of the lyrics. I listened as well as I could. I heard some of them, but mostly I just kind of got a overall sense of the lyrics in these songs. So I don't think it's useful to like specifically attack lyrics versus music on this one. Hopefully that works for you.
It doesn't, and I'm going to tell you why.
No. Okay.
Because I took the time. I transcribed the lyrics.
No, you did not. You transcribed the lyrics?
60 words a minute, bitch. Type.
Did you really?
Fast. I transcribed the lyrics. So
did you?
I actually, yes.
Wow, you should upload them to Genius. That's incredibly,
Hey,
you know what?
Genius, show me the money. Show me the money, Genius. Show me your .com boom money.
Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe I can convince you to do that for the many fans who are dying to read these lyrics. But please, then, talk to me about the lyrics. What do you think, J. William Hall?
This is a really, I think, unabashedly sweet song. You know, dedicated to all the friends he loves. And, you know, it's basically just saying, I hope that everything is going great with you and things are going well with me. Like that's basically the message of the song. But I do think that there's an element to this song musically that feels a little bit different. Like it feels like he's doing some unusual things with the melody. Like it almost reminds me of like a like one of those like Brazilian like if you could imagine him singing this melody in a different, like in Spanish or Portuguese or something, like it almost feels like it has that kind of like feel to it, like a samba-y sort of, like, I mean, it's not, it's like him finger picking, like, and but I think it's just like the tunings that he's using.
Very strange.
Yeah. And that's something that on this album you really notice, because it's, you know, it's just voice and guitar. And so you get a lot of that Eitzellerian unusual tunings that create these kind of like weird chords. And, but I really think the melody to this song is really nice. It's a really sweet way to kind of like open the collection. It sort of sets a nice mood. I'm a big fan. I think it's a strong opener.
Yeah, I think it's a great opener. I had a similar sentiment, right? Like, I imagine, first of all, the lyrical sentiment from what I could pull out of it. I did imagine, you know, as has been said online about some of these CDR releases that Eitzel has done kind of in his solo years, him sending out CDRs to a bunch of friends, you know, much like you would send out a mixtape to friends or something in the olden days. And what a sweet way to open it. It's just kind of like, you know, this really sweet sentiment to the recipients of this album. So I completely agree with you on that. I also agree with you that the tone and again the kind of intimacy of the recording perfectly sets the tone for what you're going to get on the rest of the record. With the exception, I would argue, of the second track. And we can talk about that when we get to it. But I almost kind of feel like I like that he sets the tone up front and sticks with it. And most of the songs on here really have that super stripped down, super intimate, and quite sweet, sleepy kind of a tone, right? There isn't a lot of lyrical or musical kind of expression of anger or frustration on this record. At least from what I could determine, you can tell me if I'm wrong there.
Well, we'll see. We'll find out.
But I feel like this is overall a pretty chill record for Eitzel. You know what I mean? Like it has more of a chill vibe. It isn't excessively downbeat, but there aren't a lot of kind of upbeat rockers, country songs on it. You know, there's maybe one country song on it, but we can talk about that in a second. But it is a pretty consistent tone here, and I think Friends is really reflective of that. So I think I agree with you. I really like this as the opener. It has a kind of a weirdly abrupt ending, which is another thing that reminded me of the Roman Candle record from Elliott Smith, right? There are some of those songs on here on that album where like they end in this kind of somewhat surprising way, and it just I think it's just kind of a constraint of how he was recording them, and that maybe you know what I mean. It was just trying to get something on tape.
Yeah, I mean, this one, I wouldn't be surprised if it was just like he just had just written it and sat down and kind of played it into the recorder, and that was the take. Like, because it has that sound to it. It's like his voice is very hushed as like it's late at night kind of thing, and you know, but we'll never know. It's okay not to know. It's okay not to know.
I guess that's true.
Definitively.
Yeah, I guess that's true. All right. Well, should we not know about the next song? Jay William, are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay. Track 2, There's Someone Waiting, similar title to a song that we've discussed recently. Let's find out if there's more that's similar than just the title. 2 minutes and 48 seconds. Let's go.
I run across the golden field into the late California sun. All the crickets
William. I remember that one.
Yes.
But the lyrics seem to be surprisingly corn-free to me. Could you
corn-free. Yes, so this track is clearly an alternate take of the, same titled song from Klamath. It's just a different version of There's Someone Waiting, different vocal. So the backing track, as far as I can tell, is exactly the same.
Yeah.
So I think it's just like, this is a complete alternate set of lyrics, a little bit of melody kind of differences and things like that. This version seems to be written specifically with a California setting. That's kind of the difference. And he kind of describes this sort of 1950s-ish looking like version of California, like how it would have been promoted in, the 1950s sort of thing. And, but I think that it still has that brooding kind of menacing, there's someone waiting for me repeated refrain, but it almost sounds like he's like inverting like a tourist slogan, like, come to California, like all of this is waiting for you. And it's like, something darker, but, so, it's a complete different set of lyrics, but I wouldn't say too dissimilar in terms of message or tone or message or whatever from the version on Klamath, but a really good alternate version. Like I like it a lot.
Yeah, I like this version equally or almost equally to the version.
Yeah, sure.
The kind of official version. I don't have any additional quibbles with it that I didn't have about. It was called Someone on the other album, right?
Oh, was it? Was it a slightly different title?
Yeah, it's a slightly different title. I think or Somewhere. It was either just Someone or Somewhere, I think. But I don't have any additional.
There's Someone Waiting. It was called.
Oh, so
yeah, it was called There's Someone Waiting, I think.
Oh, okay. All right. So
anyway,
it is the same.
Yeah.
Okay. But
whatever.
So I don't have any additional issues with it. But I will say this is probably one of the most substantial quibbles I have with this album, if we're going to call it an album, this collection. I wouldn't have included it on here. Because I think it is probably the one song that kind of aesthetically is the most far afield from the rest of this really intimate guitar picky acoustic stuff. And because it's really just an alternate take of a song that, you know what I mean, appears on the other one, I just question a little bit why I included it at all.
Yeah, I guess in like an ideal retracking, maybe we would take that one and we would take the other alternate take, which we will get to, and make those like a collector's only A-side, B-side single or something, and then keep Brannan Street as just the pure, it's just guitar and voice, the whole way through. I could see an argument for that. Having said that, I liked this version. It does sound different because and maybe putting it at track 2 is a little bit of a, curveball or something.
It felt like it was a curveball to me for no good reason. Because I really come at these. I know that I talked about it in the last episode as well. I come at these albums and I really do like to kind of digest an album as an album with some kind of cohesive aesthetic story, maybe lyrical connection, just like the story of all of the work put together at a certain moment in time. I like that. And this one feels like it's throwing me off of being able to kind of like
but
impose some logic on it. Maybe that's intentional and maybe he doesn't think about things that way, but I'm kind of trapped with that.
To me, logically, it does make sense because these are the leftovers that he recorded in the same body of work. You know, the part of it became Klamath, and then this is the leftovers. And so it is all like, it's not like he's jumping, you know, I pulled something from 2002 and then something from 1997 and then something from, you know, like, it's not like that. Like, it's all like the same year, you know. So I kind of feel like it sounds a little different, this one.
let me ask you let me say a different thing. I think if you just think of this album as leftovers from Klamath, which it may in fact be, it undersells the strength of the material on this album overall.
Well,
actually, I was surprised at the strength of the songwriting and really just these simple recordings on here. I expected less than I got. And in some ways, throwing in something that's an obvious B-side, like There's Someone Waiting, even though I don't think it's a bad B-side, it isn't different in any really material way. I think it kind of undersells some of these other songs, like the next one that we're going to get to, which I think is fucking a killer song.
Well, I think we should get to it then already.
All right.
We can't second guess the past. What is, what was.
This entire thing is second guessing the past. We've been second guessing the past for 42 episodes.
This podcast is built on a house of nothing.
All right, why don't we get to it? Please, track 3. It is 4 minutes and 39 seconds. Let's go.
Please, please, please.
Okay, J. William Hall, I just think this is so beautifully intimate and reminds me, again, of those last couple of tracks on Songs of Love Live so much. I just love it.
Yes, and actually, you know who I got really strong vibes is this is like a George Harrison, like Indian influenced. Like if it had sitar going in the background, it would be like, you know, George Harrison, please, you know, like it totally had that vibe to me. I mean, it does not, you know, it doesn't have a sitar, but I think there's something very droney and kind of like psychedelic about it. And I think it's great song.
I mean, the guitar work in this song I think is just lovely, and I do wonder. I mean, to me, as someone who's not really a guitar player, it sounded to me somewhat more complex than what you hear from Eitzel on many of his songs, right? And I wonder how much of that is just a very strange tuning with a more straightforward, like, you know, arpeggio of the chords that makes it sound. Does that make sense, right? Like if the tuning is really weird, but you're just doing kind of regular like arpeggios, it sounds more complicated than maybe it is. I don't know if that's what it was, but the overall effect for me was great. I loved it. I also felt like there's a droning in the background of this, right? I don't know if it's a keyboard. There's just some low-level noise deep in the mix behind him as he's playing guitar and singing. And it's like exactly enough for me. It like thickens up the song somehow without robbing it of any of the intimacy. It certainly doesn't feel kind of overproduced at all, but it does add something. And I don't know. I just like one little touch of something in the background was enough to really make this song stand out to me.
I couldn't tell. I would have to listen to it again if it was one or two. I think it might have been two guitars.
Yeah, it sounded like two at one point.
You know, but it has an effect that it sounds like a 12-string guitar a little bit at times, but I think there's like enough, something is tuned in such a way that he is, I think, hitting a drone note that's kind of sustaining throughout, but it has this kind of like low level tension, from that kind of like the whole way through. The lyrics are very spare, very haiku kind of like, but the thing that I was most impressed with the lyrics was sort of the revelation, because I transcribed them. Hey, I get the gold star. and the meaning of the word please in this song is not what you would expect. Like, you see a song titled Please and you think it's like, I'm asking for something, or, show mercy or whatever. And in this one, it's like, it means basically like, shut up, like, give me a break, like, I'm not dumb or whatever. And because it's like, I don't know. So I and hey, I've got further evidence as we go on in this, that he is writing political songs.
Oh,
He's becoming increasingly political in his middle age.
Yeah.
And so I think that this is sort of like a veiled.
You think this is a political song?
Yeah, I think it's sort of like politics that he doesn't agree with, or people who represent that, they're coming at him with different things, and he's just like, please, get away from me. Like, I've heard enough, basically, it's subtle though. I mean, it's not like he's screaming in this song. It's just very like, mellow, like droney kind of.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, listen, as I said, I did not go through the effort of transcribing the lyrics, so shame on me. But I experienced in this song, I think, what I think is more, I think it's a catchy song. It's like a surprisingly catchy song, which I tend to like Eitzel's really hooky choruses and I love Eitzel hooks, and so I'm always looking for hooks in these songs. It's more lullaby like than many Eitzel songs. I think that a lot of Eitzel songs, even the more downbeat ones or slowcore ones, tend to have a lot of drama in them, right? There is that thread of like Eitzel as the crooner that runs through not just his performance, but I think frequently some of the songwriting, right? And so you'll have these big dramatic moments, and I think when they work, they can just be incredible. But there aren't that many for a band that I think is so frequently kind of discussed in and amongst the kind of slowcore bands, or these like mopecore, whatever you want to call it. There are not that many songs that are distinctly lullaby-like, which I would not say is true of Red House Painters, for example. Another band that I think is generally kind of talked about in the same group of bands, where they have a lot of songs that I think are really lullaby-like, and like even a song like Big Night, where it's like there are these like really intimate, quiet, soft moments, but like when it swells, it gets pretty emotionally big in a way that isn't really what you want from a more lullaby-like song. This one really has this lullaby tone to me that I love, that just struck me as a listener as something new for him. I was just really delighted by it.
I feel like it's ringing a bell with like, I think he has done a couple of like sort of drony-ish sort of things. I want to say that it was on one of the earlier like super hits or Lover's Leap, like one of those early ones where, he kind of was experimenting with that a little bit. But as far as like on one of the main albums, like, I don't know if I can point to a immediate successor or predecessor.
Yeah.
No, I mean, a predecessor.
This was the first song on the record where I was like, this is there is no question this is Mark Eitzel. It is distinctly Eitzlerian. Simultaneously, it's a different mode of Eitzel than I feel like I'd heard before, both in how it was recorded and, frankly, just the type of songwriting. And I don't know. I mean, I guess for me, like, whatever, however many, 42 episodes in, however many albums we've covered at this point, it's fun to hear that. You know what I mean? It's nice to be surprised, pleasantly surprised, and I was with this one. So I give this one many stars.
And I agree. Many stars.
Okay, so listen, as we're talking about many stars, we should move on to Winners Always Win.
Let's.
I feel like that's appropriate. Winners get stars, winners win.
Yes.
J. William Hall, you, of course, know all about being a winner and all
Gold
about winning.
stars for me. Thank you.
Let's give it a listen. Winners Always Win, 4 minutes, 17 seconds.
Well, it's time to join the winning team. Though you know some dreams will have to die, it's gonna take everything that you have to believe in a lie.
Okay, J. William Hall, this is one of the tunes that lyrically I detected some real anger in. This is the one that, although, you know, again, you can flog me for not going as deep on the lyrics as I should have, clearly. But this one I detected some bitterness.
Yes, I think that this is a political song. You know, it's you know, basically a takedown of you know, kind of the right wing sort of vibe. I think that this, you know, slots in with the politics of Love Songs for Patriots. You know, toxic masculinity, the patriarchy.
Yeah.
I think that this is a critique of that culture.
Okay. Well, then listen, I appreciate your discussion of the lyrics. Outside of that, I guess I tonally, going into the lyrics.
Listen, this is what I think. This brings the song home right at the end. Keep our enemies in your prayers, though justice is only for God to take. You can always hear him in the voices we crush. You can always see it in the faces we break.
Well, I mean, clearly that doesn't sound very positive. That doesn't sound very positive or religious. I mean, what happened to I know there's someone waiting for me on the corn that's going to be reaped, and, you know.
This one he talks about,
this is different.
Believing in a lie. Like, that is a repeated idea that he comes back to throughout this song. So,
wow.
Yeah, you know, I think that this, you know, is, you know, it's one of his political numbers. I'm not sure, you know, why it didn't advance, you know, to get on to Klamath. It's got an interesting, it's still the finger-picked acoustic. It has, you know, sort of a jazzier, the chords sound a little more jazzy, bluesy at times. And, you know, like, I feel like on a couple of songs on this album, like, just hearing it when it's just guitar, and I don't know if it could be the guitar that he's using, but it has sort of, it sounds like a little like a classical guitar a little bit. And so, like, I get that, like, Girl from Ipanema kind of, like, you know, like sound or something. Like, maybe it's the chords that he's doing, you know. I'm not sure, but you know, I think it's a good song. Like, it's like a quiet protest kind of song.
Yeah. So this one, I think that this was not one of my favorites on the album. I picked up the bitterness. And again, I think maybe on repeated listens, I kind of decided what it was that I liked about the material on this album. And that maybe unduly penalized some of the songs that didn't fit within that framework quite as well. But this one doesn't fit in the framework quite as well. I don't dislike this song, but it was not one of my favorites. It's not as catchy as, what we heard on Please, for example. It isn't as kind of I don't know. This one just didn't. This was an also ran for me, I guess.
Well, you're entitled to your opinion. I think it's a worthy
no.
inclusion on this collection.
All right, well, fair enough. Why don't we move on to It's Never Over, okay? 2 minutes and 41 seconds. A quick little nugget. Let's go.
There's nothing to do but make some toasts and smoke some smokes. Love someone till they cry. Love someone until they cry.
All right, so J. William Hall, the most easily heard lyric on the album, I will argue, is this. There's nothing to do but make some toast and smoke some smokes. And both that line and I think even more than that line, the type of song this is really reminded me of John Prine.
Yeah, this definitely seems kind of written through the sort of like traditional country western.
Yeah,
we're a couple of cowboys out on the plains. Like kind of vibe.
You didn't like it?
No. I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm just describing like. Yeah, it feels like it's written from that kind of style. It led me to wonder if this was maybe intended for like, because I know like in this era of his career, he was occasionally doing some writing for like, he talks about a play that was never going to get produced that he had written songs for, like that kind of thing. And like sometimes I wonder if like something like this, because it feels more like he's trying to write in a specific style, or he's trying to write his own version on a Mississippi juke joint kind of number, or something. Like that's what this feels like to me a little bit. I mean, not like overtly, like it's not like bro at open mic night or whatever, but like because obviously better lyrics and whatever, but that's just the vibe I got from it.
It's so when I say that it reminded me of John Prine, I mean, John Prine, obviously legendary songwriter. Yeah. American genius. I would be surprised if he's not someone who Eitzel has been in some way mildly influenced by, right?
Sure.
But decidedly kind of a more traditional country writer, right? When I think of Eitzel as, or probably prior to this record, when I think of Eitzel and I think of the more kind of country influenced songs within his and the AMC catalog, I had this idea in my head that the raw material that he brought to those songs was much less obviously country than what the band did with it. Like the band kind of came in and made Crab Walk a juke joint because song,
they were country players like Voodie and Caffin and Danny had all played in these like straight up country bands.
Yeah, and if anything, like the stuff that I think you hear much more naturally in many of Eitzel's songs when they're stripped down is more of the cabaret kind of a vibe, right? Mm-hmm. Less of the country vibe until this record. But there are, definitely songs on this record where I'm like, God, this is kind of the first time that I feel like Eitzel in the Raw is making almost I wouldn't call this a country record by any stretch, but it is a pretty country influenced record. Do you think that's fair, or am I really taking too much out of this song plus Ramblin' Man, which we're going to talk about in a minute?
Well, from his earliest his earliest performing days back here in Columbus, Ohio, the C-Bus, Cowtown, the capital. He was Billy Lee. What was it? Billy Lee Buckeye? Was that or?
Yeah, I can't remember, but there was one of those. Yeah,
that was kind of like the persona that he put on. It was this cowboy kind of, name or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't. But I mean, certainly, like, throughout AMC, like, there's, definite country influence, whether that was more from the players or from the songwriting. I mean, some of the songs, definitely seem like they were written in a country style. Even if it was more like, alternative old country or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, this one, it did make me feel like it was like a genre exercise a little bit. And maybe that's just how it came to him. And he was like, do it country style.
Well, I don't know. Regardless of whether you just kind of like it was an experiment or not, I really felt like it worked. I love this.
Oh, yeah,
thing.
yeah.
I think this is a really delightful song. Different look for Eitzel. Like, would love to hear this recorded with AMC. I thought it was great.
Yeah. I mean, and this is one that you could hear almost like other, some slick Nashville country, flavor of the moment, like doing a version of this to like get some true street cred.
Yeah,
down
it's
in
true.
Nashville.
It's true.
Yeah,
it's true. All right, why don't we move on then to the next one? Not sure how I'm going to pronounce this. ssss. That's 6 S's.
I believe
6 S's. Maybe it's kind of 6 S's like success. Successes.
Oh, interesting.
Do you think? Do you think that's how,
I think that's plausible. Surprisingly.
All right. Well, then I think we should just stamp it right now. The next song's called Successes. It is 4 minutes and 44 seconds. Let's give it a little listen. Okay, J. William Hall. Clearly, we've got another instrumental here. This is another atmospheric kind of interlude. Some noodling happening. How do you feel about it?
Like on a collection like this, that's a little bit loose, a little bit like these are leftovers. This is just some stuff that I've been working on over the last year. I like it. I like the odd kind of little left turns and curveballs and like experiments, that are kind of like sprinkled in through some of these odds and sods, or unofficial releases or whatever. I will say that this particular piece is not my favorite of his ambient pieces.
Yeah.
This one, I mean, and again, like, I don't know what the origin of this was. Like, maybe this was supposed to be for a theatrical production or some other purpose. And that's kind of how it started. And then it, that fell through and it came on here. But this one is not as like just as musical, I guess, as some of his other ambient pieces. Like this has a certain harshness to it, like a couple of, like little drill kind of tones to it that I didn't enjoy as much. But it does go to some different places over the course of its, I think it's like a 5-minute kind of thing. So it's not all the same throughout. It's like the first half has kind of a mood and then it shifts and then it shifts, So I don't know. What do you think? What's going on?
I would generally agree. I will, lest the listeners or you think I always kind of dismiss these Eitzel instrumentals, these ambient things. I do mostly. I have mostly. But
right, you're not a fan.
We're going to get to one later on this album that I will tell you I'm a fan of.
Okay.
But this isn't the one. Successes, unfortunately for me, is a failure. But I think it's mostly a failure because unlike you, I wouldn't. Again, I'm trying to kind of craft this collection of songs into a coherent album.
Right.
And I think if you drop this off, it would be more coherent. You'd really have this acoustic, intimate, songwriter-driven, kind of, glimpse into the studio type of record that I think would work really well with surprisingly strong material. And I think this is just kind of again, it's like the B-side of There's Someone Waiting, or the alternate take of Someone Waiting. It's just kind of like, well, why put that on there? My feeling. So I wasn't a huge fan of this one.
I like it.
Okay. All right. Well, I can't even believe it. Jay William, we are out of time yet again. It's already been an hour, and we're only through the first half. I thought this would be one we could cover in a single episode, but it's wrong. I was wrong. Wrong again. So we will be back next week covering Side B to Brannan Street. So deep. We are going so deep on such a deep cut album. Just rest your bodies, rest your minds, and prepare yourself. Steel yourself for what will be coming next week. While you're steeling yourself, email us at backtrackingrocks@gmail.com. Go follow us on Instagram at backtrackingrocks, Twitter at backtrackingrocks, YouTube at backtrackingrocks, Reddit backtrackingrocks. Go into the American Music Club subreddit and post something. Post your old favorite AMC t-shirt. Just do something that's going to delight everyone. But until we meet again, thank you as always. We will be back next week. Bye-bye.